Before we do begin our monthly today's video, in case you lads aren't already aware, we are an official partner of Gamer Subs, and if you lads want to get yourself some Gamer Subs, you can use code Espada for 10% off. Recently, they just released a new flavor and also a new waifu cup, and you can pick them up, get a cheeky discount, and also support the channel. Alright lads, as always, that time again, once more to update our monthly tier list, this time for the month of November. This month we received 6 new characters, and funny enough, very rare for Bleach Brave Souls, all 6 of these characters are premium. So regardless of how good or bad these characters are, a lot of these characters here, almost all of them actually, offer some value on your account, excel in certain game modes, increase drops in certain game modes, and most importantly, the great thing is that they're all premium. So while some of them might be mediocre, some might be great, the main thing is that you don't have to get them now, you can get them later on for free basically if you get lucky on your summon tickets. These 6 characters basically add more value to the premium pool and makes farming point events a lot more valuable since you can get access to these particular 6 characters. Obviously the drop rate for them is going to be quite low, you still have to get lucky, but the fact of the matter is you can get them from tickets, which is something you can't say about Can't For You World characters, 1000 Year Blood War, Spirits Are Fair With You, seasonal characters for example. So while these 6 characters might not have been the hypest characters in the game, they're definitely great value and I'm happy to have them in Bleach Brave Souls. With that said though, as always, in case you are wondering how we rank our particular characters, we mainly factor 3 different things: survivability, usability, and also damage/range. If you're a character that excels in all 3 of these categories, then you're most likely going to be at the top of the ranks. And as always, the start of our tier list, right now we have the heart tier list. Now for this month, the first big change I'm going to make is actually dropping Christmas Nini to the top of S tier. She's a good character, but I feel like SS needs to be... She's still a great character, but she's again kind of reliant on having killer. And when she does have killer, she's a great character. Constantly inflicting stat augments, and the fact that she can do that against 2 killers while having 2 killers, so more damage against those 2 affiliated enemies, it increases the value of this particular character and it means she can be used more often than not. However, she is lacking a bit on the survivability, and I feel like the way the game's going now, S rank is more suitable for her. Other than that, there's nothing else to change, but this time around we did get one new character, that being the new technical version of Kisuke. So Kisuke right away I'm going to put at the around this part of S rank. It's very weird on how I should place him, but I think I'm going to go here. You could argue for him to be a bit higher, but I feel like this is actually a good placement for him. Now the reason why we are placing him as such is mainly due to the fact of the way the character was designed. For starters, he is a normal attack damaging character, and what you actually are seeing here is that Kisuke, Gin, Tokinara, Masaki, Yuhabak, and also Shinji are almost all the same type of characters in terms of being a heart, normal attack damage character. When it comes to the heart attribute, there's a lot of competition here, and in a way he can actually outperform these particular characters. So you could argue for maybe Kisuke going here, but something holds him back and I'll talk about that in a minute. So Kisuke's main aspect here is that he is able to do a lot of damage, and that mainly comes from his Flurry +1 with the additional 40% bruiser, 30% additional bruiser coming from his normal attack damage soul trait, and also an additional 20% normal attack damage that he can buff to the entire team. He then does 10% more melee damage, which is increased to 30% in guild quests, and also 30% more killer effects, which again gets increased to 50% when playing this character in guild quests. What I also do like about this particular character is that he also does come with long reach, so he does have that extra bit of range, which is unfortunately, strangely enough, rare for NAD characters nowadays. We are starting to see a bit more common, but there are many characters out there that are not attack damage based that are lacking that long reach. Now the reason why I'm not putting Kisuke as high as the other characters, despite them, you know, basically being the same, and I'm not gonna lie, his damage output is quite high. He can actually inflict a lot of damage on his normal attack damage string. However, he's held back to a certain extent, mainly due to his SA2. Now it's not really a problem. As you can see, we're still putting him near the top of S rank. The debuff SA2 is a really cool gimmick and I want to see more characters have it, but it does of course have its problems. Comparing to the other normal attack damage characters in the same attribute in the same tier, they all have a boost SA2. And in the case for Yuha and also Shinji, that's increasing everyone's stats by 43% for 20 seconds. And that means when you're using that boost, multiple waves of enemies, you are going to be having that increased stats. And because it's boosting your innate stats, and because it's boosting your overall stats, it means you can use that against multiple waves. Whereas the debuff effect unfortunately only affects one wave. So while it can actually increase your damage output by quite a bit, in this case a debuff is the reverse of a boost. It lowers the enemy stats by 33%. So it does allow your team to do more damage, and it is good to pair those two together, a boost SA2 and then a debuff SA2. It therefore means you can have up to 43% more stats, and then you're also lowering their stats by 33%. However, because the debuff effect only affects one wave, it's kind of a gimmick right now. In guild quest you can essentially use it for the first wave, which is technically the weakest, and if the quest goes on long enough, 40 seconds later, you can then use it on the final boss. Additionally, in guild quests, of course, that's where the debuff does actually shine quite a bit, because that's the only quest in the game right now where there's one enemy. Every other quest in the game has multiple waves of enemies, where the debuff doesn't really get as much usage when compared to a boost, and that's why more characters have a boost SA2 than a debuff. But regardless, it's still good. This character's still great, got a good damage output, has some usability in guild quests, and the debuff effect allows it to be quite good in epic raids. He also does come in Marauder, so he actually can be used in normal PvE content, and I do like that, and I want to put him higher, but the thing is, he is a midi character, and in my opinion, ranged characters are naturally just better, especially when it comes to normal attack damage characters, and the only reason why Yuha and also Shinji are a tad bit higher than someone like Masaki and Tokinada is because they also can do a lot of damage, but they have the booster skill where they're giving the entire team 43% stats, whereas Tokinada and Masaki are only given 33% stats. Shinji and Yuha are characters that you can use in multiple weeks of guild quests, whereas Kisuke, because it's only a debuff attack, you're probably only going to see him be used in the immediately no affiliation guild quests. And speaking of that particular guild quest has fireballs, and in this case, this character, despite being made for that particular guild quest, is not actually immune to the stats when he wants to be. That brings up the question, are Caleb planning something? Because right now he's immune to weakening. Are we going to get a harder guild quest where this character will be better in? And if so, is that particular stage going to now have weaken pulls instead of fire pulls? We're currently unsure. He could get better over time if that is the case, but as of right now, he's just a solid Knight character. And other than that, that's basically the hard tier list. I don't want to, of course, go over every single character because we've already talked about them in the past, but just know your 3 best heart characters right now in the game, of course, is the 1000 Year Blood War 2022 version Ichigo, who we did include in the tier list last month. Absolutely powerful, breaking the game one strong attack at a time. Aizen, still one of the best characters, insane survivability, great damage output, and also amazing crowd control. And then Yoruichi, insane speeds, non-stop inflicting statism and supporting the team. Again, just your 3 best heart characters in the game. Next up is our power tier list. In this case, we actually have a few changes to make. For starters, I'm going to move Bruno down just to be below Kenpachi. Bruno's always been a good character. Unfortunately, his damage output is lacking just a tad bit compared to these newer characters, but Bruno for the most part was always this high, mainly due to the fact that he does have 2 killers, he had weakening and bombardment, and that allowed him to be a very good guild quest character. And he still is. Of course, there are better characters out there now, but I find myself using Kenpachi more in normal general PvE content, so because of that, I'm going to move him down just a tad bit. Maybe one day I'll move some of these characters down from SS, but they're still just very solid and definitely hold the power attribute together. In addition to that, we're also going to be moving up Hallibel. Hallibel, I did mention, was kind of just held back by the fact that she's a Quincy killer, and now we're starting to see Quincy enemies in quests like Inheritance Trials, and that in my opinion adds more value to her, because she's always been a good character, lacking a tad bit on the damage output, not too much, but just for a character of 2022, it is a bit low. But the killer was the main thing holding her back in normal PvE content, so because of that, I think she's a good placement just to be around here. When she has killer, she's great, and because there's now Quincy enemies, it means she's even better. And fun enough, because we're mentioning Quincy enemies, someone like Yamamoto has now also gotten better. He can't move up because he's already the top of SS tier, but just know he's also gotten better since there are now Quincy enemies in IT. Our next big change is, of course, 1000 Year Blood War Toshiro. Last month, he did receive a resurrection, and while certain characters were a tad bit disappointing upon their resurrections, I'd say Toshiro's was actually pretty great and got exactly what I wanted and more. In this case, when it came to his resurrection, he picked up an additional 20% havoc, so now he has great range on his strong attacks, basically on par with the newer characters in today's age. He got an extra 60% strong attack damage, and now it also does 20% more damage to enemies that are afflicted by freeze. Because of that, it makes him better. I don't think it's enough to get him into S tier. I feel like he's still held back quite a bit by his damage output, but given the fact he has significantly more range, he is the character that you can actually invest in and maybe even max transcend, and he's going to perform PvE content just fine. He's still lacking guard break, and that's basically like the only bad thing about him. So I guess because of that, I'm just going to move him up a tad bit in A tier. Another character received their resurrection was also the Halloween version of Hallibel. Previously, she was C tier, and that mainly was due to the fact that she was lacking quite a bit on damage. But due to her new recent resurrection, she got an extra 16% no attack damage and also picked up Flurry. She unfortunately lost a bit of Bruiser, but the fact that she picked up Flurry is already a great buff in my opinion. So because of that, we're moved up a tier. Mainly just to put her around here. She's still held back by her range, damage output, and also the lack of guard break, but the Flurry definitely does make her better. Moving away from the changes though, our first character to talk about is actually the new TLA version of Kensei. Now, Kensei I actually really like. For starters, regardless of how bad or good this character is, keep in mind he does have the skill Technique Link Stop Potion +5 skill. So that therefore means if you do use this character in IZ or in Epic Raids, you are guaranteeing your team to get those 5 additional link swap potions. So regardless of how bad or good he is, he's a character that you definitely want to get your hands on since he is increasing the drops of certain items. But regardless of that, this Kensei can pack a punch. That's mainly due to the fact that this character does have a 40% Berserker with Frenzy +1, has a very easy time inflicting stat augment, which I definitely do like, as he does have the increased stat augment chance against technique attribute enemies, so he doesn't even need to have killer to inflict stat augments, very easily at the very least. And his strong attacks aren't too bad. SA3 is type of a group up attack, and that does hit a few times, so there's a very good chance when you do use that SA3, you're going to be inflicting a stat augment. And when you do inflict a stat augment, you then do 60% more damage to those enemies. And if that wasn't already insane, you then have 40% more strong attack damage when you are at full stamina. So this character, for a mid-month premium character, has a lot of great value and also can seriously hit very hard. It's actually quite crazy. He has long stride too, so he has some great mobility, and the only thing he's really lacking is basically guard break and havoc. Because he was a mid-month premium character, unfortunately he was not given that extra 20% range that other characters have for end of month. In addition to that, he wasn't given guard break, so his first initial hits on his strong attacks will be losing out a bit of damage, and at the same time he also does have a captain killer, which is good for the captain killer guild quest. He's going to be a great character for that particular week. But for general PvE content, let's say for example you wanted to take him into IT, you're only going to have killer against the bosses, which isn't entirely bad, but just a few drawbacks that make him a tad bit worse. But despite that, he does have some good usability and also heals the team every time you enter another map. So because of that, I'm going to put him around here, just below the Oroichi. Maybe, in fact, I'm going to put him above her. He's a good character that has a lot of usability, and I do think he was needed for the power attribute, especially when it comes to epic raids, as the other link swap characters that do exist, namely this Ruroka, Kokoto, Nozomi, and also Momo, are lacking a tad bit when it comes to just damage output. This Kensei has a lot of burst damage, and because he's premium, eventually you might get him duped out, and a lot of people in the future will have him, so it's going to make farming epic raids a lot easier. So because of that, I don't think he's that bad. Around the middle of S tier. Other than that though, there's nothing else to change. Yama is OP as ever, and of course, as I mentioned already, because there are Quincy enemies, Yama has now just gotten better, which is quite crazy to think about. After that, we then have the main tier list. Now this time around, there isn't really anything to change, I guess, outside of just mentioning the fact that we do have a new 1000-year Blood War Resurrection. That of course being for Sergeant. Now Sergeant, upon resurrecting, did pick up 30% more Bruiser. Now applies weakened defense upon using the Soul Bomb, so that allows your team to do more damage, or yourself. And he also picked up follow-up. Unfortunately, didn't pick up guard break, which would have really made this character just a tad bit better. Probably would have pushed him into A tier. In terms of his resurrection, he wasn't super buffed, but it does make him a tad bit better. And when we add our next character into this list, you're going to see in a minute, it adds more value to this particular character to a certain extent. So because of that, I'm just going to basically move him to the top of B. So the reason for that is basically because of our newest character, the technical version of Mayuri. Now this Mayuri for a premium character is quite stacked, so let's explain why. So for starters, this character does come with Frenzy +1, a 40% Berserker, which is great, and on top of that, when you do inflict a stat augment, you get an 80% stat boost to your Spiritual Pressure stat. He unfortunately doesn't come with an increased chance of inflicting stat augments, but what he does have instead is that every 5 seconds you have a 12% chance to inflict paralysis or poison against any enemy. So because of that, this character can easily inflict a stat augment by not even using strong attacks. Very similar to 7th Anniversary Ichigo, that's what makes this character actually very good, and it allows him to easily keep that SP boost. And if that wasn't already good enough, when at full stamina, this character, just like Kensei, has 40% more strong attack damage. And then as already mentioned, because this character has a somewhat easy time inflicting stat augments, it's going to be great for him because he then does 40% more damage to enemies that are afflicted by a stat augment. And that actually applies to any Mind Soriper in your team. And the reason why that is good to a certain extent is that actually in a way buffs Sergeant. Both of these characters have the Espada Killer, and both of these characters can be used in the immediate Espada Weaker guild quests. So Sergeant is one of the only few characters in the game right now that actually can benefit from that 40% buff. And since Sergeant got resurrected, he does 30% more damage. That actually allows him to hit just a tad bit harder. Nothing super crazy, but it's a cool team combo that I do like. So Mayuri, as already demonstrated, has a very high damage output, can buff your team, has some survivability since he does have element reversal, has good range with good strong attacks, and has some good utility since he does have guard break and also hidden enemies. So because of that, Mayuri is actually quite amazing. For a premium character, this character plays super smooth and definitely one of my more favorite characters in the game. So because of that, we're going to put him right at the top of S rank. He's a great character, and hopefully this demonstrates how powerful he actually is, and the fact that he's a premium character just makes it all the better in my opinion. I was very tempted to put him in SS tier, because I think in ways he's actually better than Lisa. In my opinion, he's better to play, he has a smoother kit, but I feel like the thing that's holding him back just a tad bit, and that's what's lacking about him. Again, it's not a bad thing because I think it was needed. The melee Espada guild quest was lacking a very powerful hard hitter, and this character fulfills that. I like that about him. However, for normal PvE play, some like Inheritance Trials, for example, he's only going to have killer against the bosses, and that means during the normal rounds of enemies, he is lacking a tad bit in the DPS output. Despite him having insane damage output, it wasn't that enjoyable using him in IT because he doesn't have killer. And when he does have killer, again, it's only going to be against the bosses. I might potentially move him up to SS tier if enough of you lads convince me to, because I feel like he's just missing one thing, and I think that's just a PvE killer. Because if he had that, he probably would have been an SS tier. But regardless of him being SS tier or S tier, he's a very good character regardless, and someone that I definitely will get my hands on sometime in the future. And because he's so good, we're going to actually just move Sarge up to A tier. Bottom of A tier. Since they can do that combo, right? But with that said, let's quickly talk about the speed tier list. So this time around, we have one change to make. It's quite a big change, to be fair. We're moving down Byakuya. I'm going to put him at the top of S tier. I feel like he's still great, and I understand there's a lot of veterans, myself included, that don't really use Byakuya all too much. I still use him in Guild Quest because he still can dish out a lot of damage. But I think a lot of his usability is shown as a new player to a certain extent. Since he does have still great crowd control, you can still use him for 4 weeks of Guild Quest with that Vortex SA2. He's still the only speed character in the game, at least a good one to use, that can go for resistances. You'll notice here, these top 4 characters don't go through any resistances, even Uryu, for example. So this Byakuya still holds value despite being 2 years old, despite having a wonky SA1 and 3, despite only having a 40% Berserker. His usability is still there. I still use him, so I think he still holds up, but I'm only dropping him down to S tier because, yeah, he's definitely starting to show his age. I've never used this character in IT for quite a while now, so because of that, I think moving him down is warranted. In addition to that, this month we also had a 1000-year Blood War Shunsui resurrection. Now, in his resurrection, in this case, he actually picked up 10% strong attack recharge, so his strong attacks do come back a tad bit fast now. That was something he was lacking quite a bit. He picked up follow-up, which technically makes him better, but it's not that good because he's an SP character. But what is good is that he did pick up an additional 20% strong attack damage. But what is good is that he did pick up a 20% full stamina damage. So when at full stamina, you're now doing 20% more damage. So because of that, I think it warrants him to be, again, around bottom of A tier, around tier, I'd say. He's a good character, still lacking a bit because he has a wonky SA2, no stat elements, but that resurrection does make him better. So because of that, just moving him up a tad bit in a tier. Other than that, looking at our newest characters, let's first talk about Shinji. Now, Shinji has a lot of damage going for him. He is a 30% full stamina damage soul trait, which already adds a lot of value to this character. Even if you are someone that doesn't want to use him, he's always going to be giving you that 30% full stam as a soul trait. That's very good for Guild Quest nuking. You can use that on someone like Noel, for example, and it's a link that I'm happy to have because I did pull this character. Alongside that 30% full stam, he does have Element Reversal, which somewhat allows him to keep that full stamina damage to a certain extent. Adds a bit of extra survivability. He comes with a 60% Berserker on top of the fact that he does have built-in recharge. And Frenzy +1 allows him to actually hit quite hard. And he can hit even harder because he does come with the SA2. And he is a character that can allow your team to hit a tad bit harder, since he also does have a 20% strong attack damage buff to your entire team if you are a speed attribute captain. In addition to that, he also does have an SA2 debuff move that's very similar to Kisuke that lowers the enemy's attack, focus, and defense by 33%. He's a character that does come with guard break and also has a 100% chance to hit any enemy that can dodge. He goes through any dodge, any affiliation, which is great in my opinion. So because of that, I'm going to put him around here. I think Shinji's great. Again, only thing he's lacking right now, just compared to some of the newer characters, is status elements and also doesn't have Havoc. So he is lacking a tad bit on the range factor. But damage output he does make up for it, in my opinion, outside of the fact that he does have a human killer, which kind of limits his usability to a certain extent. But he's a good character regardless, can be used weekly to farm scrolls, and is always going to be a very good link. After that, we then have Akon. And if you watched my video recently, this character is one of the only characters in the game right now to actually get a buff upon releasing. Now, it's very rare for this to happen. In fact, it's the first time it did happen, and it came down because he was actually bugged. And Caleb just thought, you know what, instead of fixing the character and removing it, if they did remove it, it probably want a full refund for those that spent orbs in the banner. So instead, they just put the skill onto the character. So essentially, this character is best described as a farming character. He comes with the Power Link Stop Potion +5 skill and the Super Power Link Stop Potion +5 skill. So he's a character that you're going to want to use to farm links or potions and also super links or potions. He is the first super links or character, and the fact that he's premium, in my opinion, makes it all worth it. Now, what makes this character good is the fact that he does have a good damage output, come with a 40% berserker, some good strong attacks. I actually don't mind his SA2. It's kind of a weird SA2. It's the first time we're seeing it actually as a strong attack too, but it can do some respectable damage, and despite it being range collision, which normally isn't ideal, I think it's a good strong attack too, and if you actually position it quite well, it can do a lot of damage. But along with that 40% berserker, he does actually come with an increased chance of inflicting status ailments against any power enemy. Very important for inheritance trials because that's where you want to use him. It means he has a super easy time inflicting status ailments, and when you do inflict a status ailment, you actually increase every speed attribute Sorryper's damage by 40%, and that goes for himself. So 40% berserker, very easy time inflicting status ailments, has some good range, good strong attacks, does have guard break, and when you do inflict status ailments, you're doing 40% more damage. That is great in my opinion. And it gets even better because 2 days ago, because this character was bugged, they added a new skill on him. And it gets even better because, again, this character was buffed 2 days ago. So now he has an additional skill where he's increasing every speed character strong attack damage by 20%. That goes for himself and also his entire team. And he is a character designed for inheritance trials, a co-op content. So the fact that he's now buffing everyone's strong attack damage by 20%, I think that's great in my opinion. So because of that, I'm actually putting him at the top of S tier. He is a good character. I think he's actually really powerful in my opinion. Nothing super crazy, but just good enough to be used. He does have a few issues, and I do want to quickly address that, and that could warrant bringing him down just a tad bit, and that's due to the fact that he does have a Quincy killer, but as I did mention earlier, Quincy enemies are starting to become a tad bit more common. This is the first time we're seeing him in IT, which is where this character wants to be used, so it is nice that he does have killer. However, the current content does hurt him a tad bit, since they are actually immune to burn, and this character has burn on his Night String, his SA1, and also Soul Bomb. So that kind of sucks. It's like this character was designed for IT, they gave him a Quincy killer, and then they finally bring Quincy enemies into IT, but then they make it so they're immune to his status ailments. Super annoying, but luckily his SA2 and 3 does inflict lacerate, which definitely does help a tad bit. But I think once they change the Quincy IT around and maybe it comes back with a different set of rules and requirements and different immunities, he's going to be a great character to use. And regardless of the killer, he still wants to be used since he is a super linksor character, and he's always going to have that easy time inflicting status ailments, and the fact that he now buffs your team is also great in my opinion. And with that said, that's basically the speed tier list. Again, SS tier, I think is still these four. Juicero, powerful nerd character, great auto capabilities. As a hero, great damage output. Has good survivability since he does have Drain. And also has a 50% chance to dodge 2 affiliations. The affiliations he has killer against. Noel's still, again, a great character. I did move Nini down, and you might think I should move Noel down. But Noel's still a very powerful guild quest nuke. And that's why she's still in SS tier, in my opinion. Once that starts to lose some value, then she could move down to S tier. But she's still a great character, constantly inflicting status ailments, does have 2 killers, and has an easy time inflicting those status ailments against those 2 killers. And then of course we have Uryu, only really lacking Marauder unfortunately, but other than that, non-stop heals, non-stop damage, gauge mechanics, super fast. This character's cracked. That's why he's top of SS tier. And then lastly, we have the Technique attribute. Now, it's really unfortunate because I was looking forward to buffing Byakuya up. Had he picked up Frenzy, he probably would have went to like around A tier. Unfortunately though, with his Resurrection, he only picked up Devastation plus 30%, which isn't bad because this character can hit quite hard in his Soul Bomb. And he also picked up Multi-Barrier, so he has some extra usability when it comes to being a support character. However, it's not really enough for him to be usable enough, so I'm just going to basically buff him up to B tier, because now I guess he's a decent support. And that's really about it. He does have some usability when it comes to guild quests, because you can pair him with 1000 Year Blood with Ichigo, as this character can inflict weakened defense, again does more damage on his Soul Bomb now, and doesn't inflict any status ailments, and that means Ichigo can keep us 100% damage output. So they make for a decent combo when it comes to guild quest nuking, but it does require a lot of investment. Other than that though, for this particular month, we only received 1 new character, and that is Rose. Now Rose, if I'm being honest, there isn't really much to talk about him. He is quite just okay. That's really about it. He wasn't really designed to be anything OP, so because of that, I'm basically just going to put him around here. Like, Rose is quite just meh. That's the best way to describe it. And that's perfectly fine because he isn't a character that's meant to do a lot of damage or used because he's good. He's more so going to be used because he's a farming character. In fact, he's actually quite a really good farming character. And that's due to the fact that he does come with a 70% coin drop increase, so he can farm a lot of coins. He has a 50% increase on crystals and jewels, so he can farm crystals. And then he also does have a speed droplet drop rate plus 30% as a link, so he can also farm speed droplets. And the great thing is that you can actually share it to other characters because you can use it as a link. So don't be fooled by his placement. He's quite just like okay, like he's just an okay character. If I get him, I would use him, but it's not because he's good, it's just because he's valuable. So do understand that this character is a valuable character and someone you definitely want to have in your account. if this was a value tier list, he'd be at the top. But in terms of strengths, he's kind of just average. But yeah, other than that, that's basically the technique attribute. Again, that's not much to talk about. Yachu did also get a buff, but like it's not even worth talking about, basically. Maybe just move up like by one tier, one character slot. Of course, Ichigo, Aizen, and also Retsu are still holding down SS tier. Uryu's still going to be an SS tier. He's a weird one, as I did mention when I initially put him in there last month. He doesn't feel like an SS tier character, but since he does have a lot of usability, he's boosting the team by quite a bit, and also does go through Iron Skin. There's only 2 characters in this game that do that right now. He does kind of break a game mode and makes it super easy, so because of that, he just by default has to be an SS tier character. That makes sense. Maybe if Pierce Iron Skin becomes a tad bit more common, he might drop a bit. But as of right now, he's one of the 2 only characters that can go through the mechanics. So by default, he's just like OP in that sense. But regardless of that, that's basically our tech tier list and overall our monthly tier list video. Again, as always, if you have any disagreements with where I place certain characters, do let me know in the comments below and we can maybe reflect that next month. This is based on my opinion, but at the same time, you lads can input too. If you think a character is ranked too highly, ranked too lowly, just let me know and I can maybe reflect that next month. As always, if you did make it to the end, I appreciate you sticking around. And if you are someone that maybe pulled any of these characters, congratulations. All 6 characters this time around are actually very good. Like I mentioned, you have some good, strong characters, great value characters, because a lot of them actually increase drop rate for certain stuff. 3 of the 6 characters are basically farming characters, and then the other 3 are just really good, strong characters that are useful in weekly quests, guild quests, IT, for example. So a good wide range of characters this month, and all of them are premium based, which I really do like about them. You don't have to get your hands on them now. You can get them later on when they become fillers, or get them from tickets. And when you do get them, you're going to be happy to get them because, again, good valued characters in my opinion. Looking forward to next month, because usually as we get closer to the end of the year, power creep starts to kick up a tad bit. End of month should be a limited banner. Is it going to be Safwi, 1000 Year Bloodful, or a seasonal? We don't know, but we can guarantee they're going to be pretty exciting. In my opinion, I'm kind of hoping for a 1000 Year Bloodful banner. I want to see some of these star bridges in game, so hopefully next month we can actually talk about maybe Asnot, maybe Killgame finally. We'll see when that happens, but regardless, hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll see you guys next time. Take care and peace.